Alexa,
Hi, Kathleen.
Who's Kate Joncas?
Kate Joncas is currently the Director of Urban Strategy and Development for MIG. She leads strategic efforts for complex urban projects in downtowns, neighborhoods, and urbanizing places.
What you might not realize.
As Seattle Deputy Mayor from 2014 to 2017, she directed 32 departments, led waterfront redevelopment and convention center expansion, and developed a nationally recognized government performance initiative.
And what you may not realize is that
Prior to that, she was CEO of Downtown Seattle Association, where for 20 years she led one of the most successful revitalization projects in the country. This resulted in a vibrant downtown with great retail, transportation and jobs, thousands of residents and growing diverse economy.
Thanks, Alexa.
You are welcome.
Here to tell us about what happened to her city during the growth of Amazon is Kate Joncas.
Oh, you guys. Okay, this was our Christmas present last year in Seattle from the New York Times. I mean, really? You know, the Seattle I know is a beautiful, laid-back city. Our baseball team's the only one that's never gone to the World Series, and we're okay with that. We have lots of cool music and art and tattoos, and we have 843 coffee shops. So what the heck was the New York Times talking about? So I, again, turned to a local expert to get an explanation for this. Alexa, what happened to my city? And Alexa answered, well, Kate, Amazon happened. So Amazon added 50,000 employees in downtown since 2010. There are currently 10,000 job openings for Amazon in Seattle. I invite you all to come up. Amazon now occupies 20% of all the commercial office space, all the high-rise office space in downtown, larger than the combination of the next 40 largest companies combined. And it's not only due to Amazon, this growth. Over 100 big tech brands have now set up shop in Seattle, chasing Amazon's success with recruiting employees. Here's a map that shows all the development projects currently in downtown Seattle. 200 projects, 63 under construction, 4,500 housing units alone next year, a 43% increase in the number of residents downtown and employees working in downtown since 2010. Amazon's growth has changed the entire north end of downtown. Here's 2000, here's 2018. And now that empty space that you see in the foreground, that's now 2 towers for 5,000 Google employees. Seattle's had the most construction cranes of any North American city since 2016, and 20% of all the construction in central business districts in the entire country was in Seattle in 2017. So this all sounds really good, doesn't it? This is kind of like our economic development dream that we have all had for years. So why this? What could possibly have gone wrong to result in this? So, okay, our housing market is just a little bit out of control. It was the hottest housing market in the country in 2017 and 18. Our median home price now is $750,000. We were creating about 1.6 jobs for every one housing unit we were building, causing an incredible spike in housing prices. And it's not only housing. Everything, according to the Consumer Price Index, is more expensive in Seattle, including yoga classes. We are about to lose our namaste. Okay, so our traffic is kind of bad, but worse to drive in than California? I mean, come on. And a headline traffic among worst on Earth? Now that's a whole new level of bad. Our income equality is among the worst in the country. Our $15 minimum wage did actually help households at the lower end of the income spectrum to remain unchanged during this period. However, the reason our income equality is now worse is that the gains made by the upper end of the household income were so big that the gap between the rich and everyone else has widened. So we didn't like it, but the New York Times was actually right. So I know all of you out there, you're thinking, okay, we're not Seattle. Actually, you're probably thinking, shoo, we're not Seattle. But the problems that are writ large for us, an affordable housing crisis, growing traffic congestion, and the impacts of growing inequity are problems for all of us in this room. So what can we do? What will the next decade demand of us and of our profession? How do we remain the stewards of the civic core of our downtowns? And most importantly, where can we lead? As organizations, interestingly, we are uniquely positioned to lead, to show a path forward and make a difference. We have some of the most creative private sector people on our boards. Our leaders tend to be pragmatic and not ideological. We're focused on data and outcomes. Our bids have matured and are stable, and we are really used to solving complex problems with lots of stakeholders. After all, remember, downtowns were declared dead in 1980, and we really showed them, didn't we? So we are now in a position to step up to some bigger community issues that also significantly impact our downtowns. Here are the three that I think where we can lead, and our organizations must lead in the next decade. We need affordable workforce housing for teachers and firefighters and the people who work in downtown in retail, service, and hospitality. And housing is the linchpin of all other inequity, and so is a really important place for us to start. 3 numbers about the housing crisis. We have a shortage of over 7 million homes for low-income people in the United States. 30% of American families spend more than 30% of their income on housing. And in the 1970s, the federal government spent 3 times as much on housing for people in America as they do now. Today's modern phenomena of homelessness did not exist in the 1970s because we were providing housing for almost everyone. Here are 2 areas where we can lead and we can move the needle. We need to support citywide upzones. Get ready for the hate mail. But our organization's support for this is really essential. Density and affordable housing along transit corridors connects people with jobs and helps to improve economic mobility. We need to advocate for policies that say surplus land in our city, first priority is given free for affordable housing, and that all permits for affordable housing are expedited. 2, there are little to no federal or state level grants for affordable workforce housing. So private sector leadership in this area and creating new funding sources is really essential. We have the people on our boards who can lead on something like this. Social impact funds for affordable housing are popping up around the country and could be a new source of flexible funding in your community. Companies, banks, foundations, wealthy individuals invest for these funds for a set number of years for, say, a 2% return, and that money in turn is relent for low-interest loans for public and private sector developers who are doing affordable housing. To stay competitive in the next decade, we need to play a role in increasing economic mobility. Our organizations need to be proactive in helping entrepreneurs and in growing jobs. Downtown's vibrancy has always depended on having interesting and unique businesses and on being an employment center. We are at the point now where we need to grow our own. A couple of facts. 60% of all the jobs in the U.S. are created by small businesses. 99% of all the businesses in the U.S. are small businesses. And last year, 30% of new businesses were started by first-generation immigrants. 2 ideas in this area where we can lead and make a difference. The first year is always the most difficult for a small business. We could increase the success rate of startups in our downtowns by providing targeted technical assistance and funding a permit navigator. especially to help aspiring restaurateurs with the very complicated multiplicity of permits that they have to get. This permit navigator would be especially important for someone who is new to the English language. Second, a good incubator would be an attraction and a great use for that big vacancy that you have in downtown. This is a picture of Norfolk's very successful Selden Market. All the businesses here are startups. They matched a full range of business support and services with a really high-quality facility and made it an exciting downtown destination. It could also be a job training opportunity for folks in adjacent neighborhoods. Now, there continue to be, and there will always be, opportunities for creative entrepreneurs in downtown, which explains this thriving business venture, which is literally across the street from the Amazon headquarters. We have a lot of software engineers in downtown, and they tend to be kind of geeky, single, lonely guys. Enough said. In 1995, Amazon was just another small startup in downtown Seattle. Jeff Bezos directed his team to expand in downtown Seattle because he thought that downtown's vibrancy would enable him to get the best talent for his company. So people say to me, okay, that was luck. Luck, schmuck. That was not luck. That was a result of 60 years of hard work making downtown an attractive choice. Luck is when opportunity meets preparation, and every city has opportunity, but not every city is prepared to take that opportunity and turn it into something special. The next Amazon could be in your downtown right now. What are you doing to support them? Companies are looking today for cities with a highly educated workforce and an affordable quality of life. Sadly, that is no longer Seattle, but that describes almost every city in this audience. This is your time. So here we have a photo of The Walking Dead. This is just a typical bus stop. It doesn't have to be like this. You can make your city a transit city. Why do we need to lead on transit in this room? One, our vehicles still account for nearly 20% of all U.S. emissions, and 85% of Americans still drive alone to work. Martin Luther King, number 2, said urban transit systems were a genuine civil rights issue. He drew the connection between access to affordable transit, employment opportunity, and equity. Research also shows that increasing public transit allows workers to connect with a wider array of jobs, increases wages, and economic mobility. And third, an example, McDonald's remote suburban location in Chicago and lack of transit nearby made it difficult for them to attract and retain good workers and employees and the best, and so they moved downtown to get a better labor pool. 2 ways that we can help make our city a transit city. Okay, so you saw traffic is really bad in the region in Seattle, but actually in downtown it's not that bad because we were able to absorb 50,000 plus new jobs, mostly on transit and walking. Only 2,200 net new drive-alone commuters. Only 2,200 of those 50,000 new people are driving alone to work in downtown. We could not have stuffed 50,000 new cars in downtown, so getting people on transit was an economic imperative for us. We achieved this by a laser-like focus on understanding customer behavior and making transit the preferred choice. Not the choice you had to take because there was nothing else, but the preferred choice. We pushed for frequent service on major bus lines. As frequency went up, ridership went up. We pushed for digital signs at bus stops and apps that told you when your bus was coming because that improvement to customer convenience also improved ridership. The toughest business challenge this day for our people in downtowns is getting good employees. The Seattle business community became transit advocates when building owners told us that their tenants were demanding good transit options. Bike parking, nearby transit stops, discount transit cards for tenants, all those suddenly became competitive leasing issues. Your business members need to step up to demand better transit. and be willing to say yes to the funding that's going to be needed to make that possible. There isn't something inherent in cities that have, it's not the people, it's not the culture, it's not the density of cities that have high transit ridership. It's about access to convenient transit choices. When people have good choices, they will use them. Any city can be a transit city. Where transit goes, the economy grows. This is what that effort gets. Huge, stunning change. Weyerhaeuser moved downtown near transit because they thought it would help them hire the best talent. Now, I have to drop a little transit hint here for you. We supported and raised funds for the South Lake Union Trolley to connect downtown neighborhoods, and so employees could get back and forth to transit and work. People, do not let transit engineers select the name. Ride the Slut made national TV. Yeah. We've all survived worse in this room, right? So I have proposed some ideas today where we need to step up to leadership in the next decade and how we might do that. You know, some of my biggest professional regrets in this field is when I wasted time waiting for someone to give us permission to lead instead of stepping up. Just because no one asked you doesn't mean you shouldn't. I've worked with probably 60 or 70 downtowns around the country and around the world, and people always ask me, Kate, what are the secrets to success? It's not how big your budget is. It's not how good your economy is. It is all about the leadership, because I've seen cities that have been successful with either a good economy and without a huge budget. It's about the leadership. So I'm going to leave you with a couple of leadership principles that seem appropriate in the next decade. First, equity is absolutely fundamental. Downtown is everybody's neighborhood. We need to work to keep it that way, to make sure those values show through our work. If our customers don't value downtown and our experiences, we have nothing. And on everything from homelessness to transit to job creation to getting people to come downtown, starting from the customer point of view always leads to better outcomes. Finally, make no little plans. We didn't get here today by planning to just be okay. We turned an enormous economic tide bringing downtowns back to life. Never underestimate your ability to make change. So remember how we started the day yesterday with the choir? We're all in the same boat together. It's our time to lead and make a seat for everyone. Thank you very much.